Her clothes hung in the closet. Her toiletries sat in the bathroom. Her car remained in the driveway. Her purse and makeup untouched. But her cell phone was gone. And so was Bethany Lee Brown. The 38-year-old mother of 3 vanished the day after her youngest daughter's 6th birthday party. The night before, she'd called her mother distraught. She and her boyfriend Tony Swaney had argued. It wasn't the first time. The next morning, she was gone. He told police she just left. Nearly 3 years later, hunters found her skeleton in woods behind his house. She never left. She was murdered. If you want to see justice for victims like Bethany, share, subscribe and hit that notification bell because every detail in this case matters. Now let's break down exactly what happened. April 8, 2022, Saturday. A child's 6th birthday party at 81 Caldwell Drive in Taylorsville, North Carolina. Bethany Lee Brown celebrates with her youngest daughter. Bethany has 3 children. The youngest, turning 6 today, is her daughter with Tony Swaney, the man she lives with. They share this modest home in a quiet area north of Taylorsville, surrounded by woods. That evening, Bethany calls her mother, Brenda Barnes. Her voice is strained. She's distraught. She and Tony had an argument. Not their first. They'd fought before multiple times. Brenda knows the relationship has tensions. She knows Bethany has even left home on at least one previous occasion, though she'd always come back. But something about this call feels different. Bethany's distress is palpable. Barnes talks to her daughter, tries to calm her, but the conversation ends without resolution. Neither woman knows this is the last time they'll ever speak. April 9, 2022, Sunday. Brenda tries calling Bethany. The phone goes straight to voicemail. She tries again. Same result. Hours pass. No response. No returned calls. No texts. April 10, 2022, Monday morning. Still no contact. Barnes tries repeatedly to reach her daughter. Every call goes to voicemail. The phone is off or dead or destroyed. But Bethany wouldn't just ignore her mother. Bethany was devoted to her 3 children. She'd worked at Big Lots and in restaurants before becoming a full-time mother and homemaker. Those kids were her world. One of her sons had been diagnosed with leukemia before this. Bethany had been there through every treatment, every hospital visit, every terrifying moment. She wouldn't abandon him. She wouldn't abandon any of them. Not on purpose. Not voluntarily. 9:50 a.m. April 10th, 2022. Brenda Barnes calls the Alexander County Sheriff's Office. Her voice shakes as she reports her daughter missing. Last known location, 81 Caldwell Drive, Taylorsville. Living with boyfriend Tony Swaney and their 6-year-old daughter. The dispatcher takes detailed notes. Bethany Lee Brown, age 38. Physical description, 5 feet 5 inches tall, approximately 130 pounds. Brown hair, blue eyes, butterfly tattoo on her left hip. She was on medication at the time, though the nature of the medication isn't specified. She prefers jeans and t-shirts. Her favorite color is purple. She loves being with family, riding around in the mountains, swimming. But most importantly, her car is still at the house. Her purse is still there. Her makeup, all her belongings. Only her cell phone is missing. Deputies are dispatched immediately. This isn't a woman who packed up and left. This is a woman who vanished. Within the hour, deputies arrive at 81 Caldwell Drive. The house sits in a quiet area with woods surrounding the property. Privacy comes easy here. Things could happen without neighbors noticing. Tony Swaney answers the door. He's 33 years old, calm, cooperative. Yes, Bethany lives here with him. Yes, they're in a relationship. Yes, they have a daughter together. No, he doesn't know where Bethany is. She left a couple days ago, maybe April 8th. He assumed she went to stay with family. He's not worried. She's done this before. The deputies exchange glances. A woman doesn't vanish on her daughter's birthday. A mother doesn't disappear without telling her children where she's going. Not unless something is very wrong. They press for details. When exactly did she leave? What was she wearing? Did she take anything with her? Did you argue? Swaney's answers are vague. Saturday, maybe. He doesn't remember what she was wearing. She didn't pack anything that he noticed. They had words, but nothing serious. She just said she needed space. He figured she'd come back when ready. The deputies asked to search the property. Swaney agrees without hesitation. He says he wants to help find her. He seems concerned now that police are involved. They walk through the house methodically. Every room, every closet, every space where someone might hide or be hidden. Bethany's bedroom tells a story Swaney isn't admitting. Her clothes hang neatly in the closet. Shirts, pants, dresses, everything a woman would need. Her personal items cover the bathroom counter. Toiletries, makeup, hair products. Her car sits in the driveway, keys presumably inside the house. Women don't leave for days without packing clothes. They don't abandon their vehicles. They don't walk away without basic necessities. The physical evidence contradicts everything Swaney is saying. But there's one thing missing. Bethany's cell phone. Not in the house. Not in the car. Not anywhere deputies can find it. The phone that went dead or was turned off sometime after her call to her mother on April 8th. The deputies recognize every red flag. This isn't a woman who left voluntarily. This is a missing person case with all the hallmarks of foul play. The boyfriend's story doesn't match the evidence. The timeline is suspicious. The missing phone is telling. The fact that she vanished the day after an argument is damning. But suspicion isn't evidence. Without proof, without witnesses, without a body, they can't arrest anyone. They need more. The Alexander County Sheriff's Office immediately elevates the investigation. They contact the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation. This case requires resources beyond what a local department can provide. The SBI responds with experienced investigators, forensic specialists, and cadaver dogs. Sheriff Chad Pinnell takes personal interest in the case. A mother of 3 missing under suspicious circumstances. A boyfriend whose story doesn't add up. A house full of the victim's belongings but no victim. This requires every resource they have. The investigation expands across the property. If something happened to Bethany here, evidence would remain. Blood, signs of struggle, something that proves what really occurred. They search the house again more thoroughly. They examine the yard. They look at the woods bordering the property. Those woods are dense, private, accessible from the house. If someone wanted to hide something, those trees would provide cover. Cadaver dogs arrive. German shepherds trained to detect human decomposition even when buried or concealed. The handlers work systematic patterns across the property. The dogs know what they're searching for. If there's a body here, they should find it. The dogs work through the yard first, then into the tree line, deeper into the forest. Hours pass. The search covers every accessible area around the house. Every location where remains could reasonably be hidden. But the dogs don't alert. They find nothing. The search comes up empty. Here's the terrible irony that won't be understood for nearly 3 years. Bethany Brown's body is lying in those woods during this search. But they don't find her. The timing explains why. In April 2022, if Bethany died on April 8th or shortly after, her body has only been dead for days. Decomposition hasn't progressed enough for cadaver dogs to detect from a distance. The scent signature that alerts dogs requires decomposition gases, cadaverine, putrescine, that take time to develop and spread. In cool spring weather under brush, a recently deceased body might not emit enough scent for dogs to detect unless they walk directly past it. Without knowing the exact spot, searchers can miss remains even when they're feet away. The dogs need a strong scent cone to follow. Without it, they walk past without alerting. The investigation shifts focus entirely to Tony Swaney. Statistics are clear. When a woman disappears from her home, the intimate partner is involved in the overwhelming majority of cases. Swaney was the last person to see Bethany alive. They'd argued the night before. Her belongings remained, but she was gone. Her phone was missing. Everything points to him. Detectives prepare for intensive interrogation. They need answers. They need the truth. And they need Tony Swaney to break. SBI investigators bring Tony Swaney in for questioning. He sits across from detectives who've interrogated hundreds of suspects. They know the patterns. They know when someone's lying. They study his body language, listen to his voice, watch for the tells most people can't control. Swaney maintains his composure. His story doesn't waver. Bethany left Saturday evening after their argument. He doesn't know where she went. He thought she'd come back like she had before. She'd left home on previous occasions. This didn't seem different until her mother got involved. The investigators press harder. Why didn't you report her missing yourself? Why didn't you call her mother to ask if Bethany was there? Why weren't you concerned when days passed without contact? Swaney's answers sound reasonable on the surface. She's an adult. He didn't want to seem controlling by tracking her down. He figured she needed space after their argument. She told him she was leaving. He respected that. Now that her mother is worried, he's worried too. The investigators ask about the relationship. Any history of violence? Physical altercations? Serious threats? Swaney says no. They argued like any couple. Nothing physical. Nothing dangerous. He cared about Bethany. She's the mother of his daughter. He wants her found safe. They ask about the argument on April 8th. What was it about? Who initiated it? How did it end? Swaney is vague. Couple stuff. Nothing specific. It wasn't serious. Bethany got upset and said she needed to get away. He let her go. That was it. The investigators aren't buying it. They've heard this exact story from dozens of killers. The concerned partner who respects the victim's space. The reasonable explanations for suspicious behavior. The calm demeanor that doesn't match the circumstances. But Swaney doesn't crack. He answers every question. He maintains his narrative. He volunteers that he's willing to take a polygraph test to prove his innocence. This detail, his willingness to take a polygraph, becomes part of his public defense strategy for years. Meanwhile, investigators fan out across Taylorsville and Alexander County. They interview everyone who knew Bethany. Friends, family, co-workers from her time at Big Lots and in restaurants. Anyone who might know where she went or what happened. Every single person says the same thing. This makes no sense. Bethany wouldn't abandon her children. Her sister Jenna Laywell emphasizes what everyone knows. Bethany's son had been diagnosed with leukemia. Bethany had been there through every treatment. She would never walk away while her child fought cancer. It's unthinkable. Friends describe Bethany as someone who would give you the shirt off her back. Generous, devoted to family, hardworking. The idea that she would vanish without packing, without explanation, without telling her children where she was going contradicts everything everyone knows about her. If you're still watching, you're clearly interested in real cases told in full. Like, share, subscribe now, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what comes next. Brenda Barnes is adamant with investigators. Her daughter didn't leave voluntarily. Bethany called her distraught on April 8th. They'd argued before, yes, but something about this felt different. And Bethany would never, ever abandon her children. Especially not the son who'd been battling leukemia. Something terrible happened. And Tony Swaney knows what. But belief isn't evidence. Investigators can suspect Swaney all they want. Without proof, without a body, without physical evidence, without witnesses, they can't charge him with anything. The search expands beyond Swaney's property. Investigators identify areas where a body might be hidden. They search 40 acres near Rocky Face Mountain Park. They search several waterways in the area. They bring cadaver dogs to neighboring Wilkes County to search additional locations. Every search comes up empty. No body, no evidence, no breakthrough. On April 19, 2022, 9 days after Bethany was reported missing, the Alexander County Sheriff's Office issues a public missing person alert. The description provides details. Bethany Lee Brown, 38 years old, 5 feet 5 inches, approximately 130 pounds. Brown hair, blue eyes, butterfly tattoo on her left hip. Last seen walking away from her residence on Highway 16 North. That phrasing, walking away from her residence, supports Swaney's narrative that she left voluntarily. but it contradicts all the physical evidence showing her belongings remained at the house. Alexander County Crime Stoppers offers a $1,000 reward for information leading to Bethany's location. The sheriff's office provides contact numbers for tips, but no credible information comes in. What do you think happened that night after the birthday party? Comment below. Then something interesting occurs. Two members of Swaney's family contact investigators with possible information about Bethany's whereabouts. They suggest locations where she might be. Sheriff Pennell takes these tips seriously. He sends multiple personnel to search the suggested areas. Cadaver dogs work those locations thoroughly. They find nothing. The tips lead nowhere. This raises questions. Were Swaney's family members genuinely trying to help? Or were they deliberately sending investigators to wrong locations to waste resources and time? Weeks turn to months. The investigation consumes massive resources but yields nothing. Detectives work relentlessly. They follow every lead. They re-interview witnesses. They search anywhere a body could be hidden. But by the end of 2022, they've exhausted every option. No body, no crime scene, no physical evidence, no confession, no witnesses. The case officially goes cold. The file is marked as an open, unsolved, missing person investigation. Life continues in Taylorsville. Tony Swaney remains at 81 Caldwell Drive with his daughter. He goes to work. He comes home. He maintains the property. To outward appearances, he's just another single father raising a child after the mother left. His next-door neighbor, Wanda Mason, watches with conflicted feelings. Her neighbor's girlfriend vanished under suspicious circumstances. Police searched extensively. The SBI investigated. Then the case went cold. And Swaney just stayed there, living normally. 2023 passes. No sightings of Bethany. No credible tips. No breaks in the case. Bethany exists in the horrible limbo reserved for the missing. Not confirmed dead, but clearly not alive somewhere living a new life. Bethany's 3 children grow up without their mother. Her son, who'd been fighting leukemia, continues treatment. Eventually, miraculously, he beats the cancer. As Jenna Laywell would later say with heartbreaking clarity, "The Lord has since healed him, and Bethany has probably not heard about it." Think about that. A mother's child survives cancer. One of the greatest reliefs any parent can experience. And she never knew, because she was already dead, her body decomposing in woods while her children wondered where she'd gone. The daughter Bethany shared with Tony Swaney has birthdays without her mother. April 8th comes and goes each year. A day that should be joyful celebration now marked by the absence of the woman who gave her life. In April 2024, 2 years after Bethany disappeared, Channel 9 News runs a follow-up story. Brenda Barnes speaks publicly about her daughter's case. "When she didn't call me and didn't get in touch with her after that, I went to the police and told them," Barnes explains. "I just know we want her back. We sure would like the truth to be told." Jenna Laywell and other family members describe their efforts to find Bethany. They've searched Facebook. They've contacted every friend they could think of. They've pursued every possible lead themselves. Nothing. To their knowledge, Bethany had no enemies. No reason anyone would want to hurt her. The reporter approaches Tony Swaney for comment. He declines to speak on camera except to say he hopes Bethany will be found. This public statement, 2 years after she vanished, maintains the image of the concerned boyfriend still hoping for her safe return. But when the Taylorsville Times contacts Swaney by phone in April 2024, he says more. He confirms he's been questioned by law enforcement. He states he took a polygraph test. Then he makes a stunning accusation. He suggests that other family members, presumably Bethany's family, should be given polygraphs. He implies they know Bethany's whereabouts. He requests to meet in person for a full interview but never follows through. This is classic deflection. Instead of simply expressing concern for Bethany, he's actively suggesting her own family is hiding something. He's creating alternative theories. He's pointing investigators away from himself. Sheriff Pennell, when asked about the case in April 2024, is careful with his words. "We have not received any evidence that would lead us to believe that there's any foul play, but on the other hand, We have still not located Bethany at this point, so everything is open. 2024 brings no answers. Another year passes. Another birthday for Swaney's daughter without her mother. Another year of Bethany's son living cancer-free without being able to tell his mother the good news. Tony Swaney continues his routine at 81 Caldwell Drive. If he's burdened by guilt, he doesn't show it. If he's worried about investigators, it doesn't affect his visible behavior. He just lives there, in the house where Bethany was last seen alive, bordered by the woods where her body has been decomposing for years. Then January 13th, 2025 arrives. Two duck hunters enter woods near Highway 16 North. They're looking for a good spot to hunt. One of them notices something white protruding from the ground through dead leaves and brush. He moves closer. His stomach drops. A human skull. Skeletal remains scattered across the forest floor. Bones that have clearly been here for years. He pulls out his phone and dials 911. And the case that went cold in 2022 is about to explode back to life. January 13th, 2025. The two duck hunters wait at the edge of the woods while sirens approach. One can't stop shaking. He keeps replaying the moment, pushing through brush looking for a hunting spot, then seeing that skull. The human skull, just lying there among dead leaves like it had been waiting to be found for years. Alexander County Sheriff's deputies arrive within minutes. They secure the perimeter immediately. Crime scene investigators follow. The medical examiner is notified. The SBI is contacted. Yellow tape goes up around the wooded area. The deputies recognize the location immediately. Woods near Highway 16 North, in proximity to Caldwell Drive. More specifically, very close to 81 Caldwell Drive. The address where Bethany Brown was last seen alive in April 2022. But they don't jump to conclusions yet. Human remains found in woods could be anyone. Could be from any time period. They need identification before making connections to cold cases. The skeletal remains are photographed from every angle before anyone touches them. Years of exposure to North Carolina weather have done their work. The bones are scattered across the site. Animals have disturbed the remains over time. Some bones have been moved from their original positions. Decomposition is complete. Only skeleton remains. Crime scene investigators work methodically. They document the position of every bone. They photograph the surrounding area. They look for anything else that might provide clues. Clothing remnants, personal items, evidence of how the person died. The location is documented precisely. The remains are found in woods that aren't easily accessible from public roads. You'd need to know this area. You'd need to access it from nearby private property. Or you'd need to be very familiar with the terrain. The bones are carefully collected one by one. Each is bagged and labeled. The entire site is processed as a potential crime scene. Once collection is complete, the remains are transported to the North Carolina Chief Medical Examiner's office in Raleigh. The SBI Crime Lab gets involved immediately. Now begins the painstaking forensic process that will take nearly a year. Who was this person? How long have they been dead? How did they die? Skeletal remains present unique challenges. There's no soft tissue to examine, no blood to analyze, no fresh wounds to study, just bones and whatever story they can tell. The medical examiner begins with basic identification markers. The bones indicate female. The approximate age based on bone development and wear matches someone in their late 30s. The height estimated from long bones is around 5 feet 5 inches. These details match Bethany Brown, but they could also match other missing women. The medical examiner needs definitive proof. They request Bethany's dental records from her dentist. Dental comparisons are one of the most reliable identification methods. Even after complete decomposition, teeth remain intact and maintain their unique characteristics. Simultaneously, DNA testing is initiated. Samples from the skeletal remains are compared against reference samples from Bethany's family members, her mother Brenda Barnes, her sister Jenna Laywell, her children. DNA doesn't lie. If these remains are Bethany, the genetic markers will match. But forensic analysis takes time. The medical examiner's office handles dozens of cases simultaneously. Each requires meticulous attention. Each must follow strict protocols. Each must produce results that will stand up in court if this becomes a criminal case. Months pass. Spring 2025 turns to summer. Summer turns to fall. The hunters who found the remains wonder what became of their discovery. Wanda Mason continues living next door to Tony Swaney, unaware that the missing woman case from 2022 is about to be solved. Bethany's family waits. They don't know about the skeletal remains found in January. The sheriff's office hasn't notified them yet because identification isn't confirmed. They continue living in the same painful uncertainty they've endured since April 2022. Inside the medical examiner's office, work continues. They analyze bone structure. They compare dental records. They wait for DNA results from the lab. The evidence accumulates slowly but steadily. The bones are definitely female. The age matches Bethany. The height matches. The dental records are a strong match. The DNA results, when they finally arrive, are conclusive. But there's something else. Something that transforms this from a tragic death into a criminal homicide investigation. During examination of the skeletal remains, the medical examiner discovers damage to bone consistent with a gunshot wound. The specific bone affected, the fracture pattern, the beveling around the defect, all indicate a bullet passed through. They can determine trajectory. They can confirm this wasn't accident or natural causes. December 18, 2025. Nearly 11 months after the duck hunters made their discovery. Nearly 3 years and 8 months after Bethany vanished. The North Carolina Chief Medical Examiner's Office completes their analysis and makes official determinations. Identity. The skeletal remains are positively identified as Bethany Lee Brown. The dental records match. The DNA matches her family members. There is no doubt. Cause of death. Gunshot wound. The medical examiner can determine from bone trauma that a bullet passed through Bethany's body. The exact entry and exit points can be approximated from skeletal damage. Manner of death, homicide. This was not an accident. This was not suicide. This was not natural causes. Bethany Lee Brown was murdered. The Alexander County Sheriff's Office receives notification immediately. Sheriff Chad Pinnell pulls the old case file, the one that went cold in 2022. Every interview, every search report, every piece of evidence. Everything gets reviewed with fresh eyes and new knowledge. The timeline snaps into focus with devastating clarity. April 8, 2022. Bethany celebrates her daughter's 6th birthday at 81 Caldwell Drive. That evening, she calls her mother distraught after arguing with Tony Swaney. April 9th to 10th. Bethany vanishes. Her belongings remain at the house, but her cell phone is missing. April 10th. Her mother reports her missing at 9:50 a.m. Investigators search Swaney's property with cadaver dogs but don't find the body. Nearly 3 years pass. January 13th, 2025. Hunters find skeletal remains in woods near 81 Caldwell Drive. December 18th, 2025. Medical examiner confirms the remains are Bethany Brown, shot to death. She was murdered. Her body was hidden in woods accessible from Swaney's property. And the last person to see her alive was Tony Swaney. Every piece of evidence points to one conclusion. The sheriff's office coordinates with the SBI. They need to move fast. They've waited nearly 4 years for this moment. They're not waiting anymore. Prosecutors review the evidence. The case is entirely circumstantial, no murder weapon, no witnesses to the actual shooting, no confession. But circumstances can be overwhelming. Last person to see victim alive. Argument the night before. Victim's body found near his property. Years of lies about her disappearance. Medical examiner confirmation of homicide. A jury can connect those dots. They prepare an arrest warrant. The charge, murder. Not manslaughter. Not negligent homicide. Murder. The intentional, unlawful killing of Bethany Lee Brown. As we continue, like, share, subscribe now and hit that notification bell. January 7th, 2026. Nearly 4 years after Bethany disappeared. Nearly 1 year after her remains were discovered. Just 3 weeks after positive identification. The Alexander County Sheriff's Office, working with the SBI, executes the warrant. Deputies arrive at 81 Caldwell Drive. Neighbors watch as law enforcement vehicles surround the property. Police and SBI agents are on scene for 3 hours. The search warrant is sealed. The public won't know what evidence they collected that day. Tony Elias Swaney, now 37 years old, is arrested without incident. No dramatic confrontation, no chase, no resistance. Deputies place him in handcuffs and read his Miranda rights. He exercises his right to remain silent. He's not talking. He's transported to Alexander County Detention Center and booked on 1 count of murder. The magistrate denies bond. A man charged with murdering the mother of his child, who concealed the crime for nearly 4 years, is both a flight risk and a danger to the community. His first court appearance is scheduled for January 12, 2026. The news breaks publicly that evening. The sheriff's office releases a statement. After nearly 4 years, the Bethany Brown missing person case has been solved. Skeletal remains found by hunters have been identified. Medical examiner determined homicide by gunshot wound. An arrest has been made. The story explodes across local news. Missing mother. Cold case solved. Skeletal remains. Boyfriend charged with murder. Body found near his house. It leads every broadcast in the region. Brenda Barnes gets the call on January 7, 2026. The call she's been dreading for nearly 4 years. Her daughter is dead. Bethany's skeletal remains have been positively identified. She was shot to death. The man she lived with, the father of her youngest child, has been arrested and charged with murder. The confirmation of worst fears. The end of hope. The beginning of a grief that has no remedy. No more wondering if Bethany is alive somewhere. No more hoping she'll walk through the door with an explanation. Just the knowledge that she's gone. That she was murdered. That she died violently at the hands of someone she trusted. The next day, January 8, 2026, Channel 9 reporter Dave Faherty speaks with Barnes. She agrees to go on camera. She needs people to understand what this has cost her family. Horrible, Barnes tells Faherty, her voice breaking with emotion. Horrible what she must have went through. Think about that statement. A mother imagining her daughter's final moments. Wondering if Bethany knew what was coming. If she was scared. If she suffered. If she called out for help that never arrived. The reporter asks what Barnes would say to Swaney if given the chance. Her answer is simple and devastating. I'd ask him why. I'd ask him what was going on that day. But those answers may never come. Swaney has invoked his right to remain silent. He's not talking to investigators. He's not explaining what happened. He's not providing the closure Bethany's family desperately needs. He's not telling them why he killed the mother of his child. The details that emerge paint a horrific picture. Bethany's car was still at the house when she vanished. So was her purse, her makeup, her clothing, everything except her cell phone. The implication is clear. The phone might have contained evidence. Text messages, photos, call logs, something that needed to be destroyed. News reports note that when deputies searched the property on April 10, 2022, everything suggested Bethany hadn't left voluntarily. Women don't walk away without cars, without purses, without clothes, without basic necessities. The physical evidence contradicted Swaney's story from the very beginning. But without a body, without proof, investigators couldn't move forward. They knew something was wrong. They suspected Swaney. But suspicion isn't enough for an arrest warrant. The community of Taylorsville and Alexander County reacts with shock and horror. People who remembered the missing person case from 2022 now have answers. Terrible answers, but answers. Wanda Mason, Swaney's next-door neighbor, speaks to reporters. The realization of what she lived next to for 4 years is sickening. He said he took a lie detector test and he passed it, is what he told me, and I sort of believed him, Mason admits. Her voice carries the weight of that statement. She believed him. She lived next door to a man accused of murder, and she believed his claims of innocence. This is the power of killers who can compartmentalize. Tony Swaney didn't act like a murderer. He seemed normal. He maintained his property. He waved at neighbors. He raised his daughter. He went to work every day. He told people he hoped Bethany would be found. He claimed he'd passed a polygraph. He suggested Bethany's own family knew where she was. The mask never slipped. For nearly 4 years, he maintained the performance of the concerned boyfriend who just wanted answers. All while Bethany's skeletal remains lay in woods accessible from his backyard. The sheriff's office can't discuss whether a polygraph was actually administered. Polygraph results aren't admissible in court anyway. They're investigative tools with significant limitations and accuracy concerns. But the fact that Swaney told neighbors and reporters he'd passed one suggests he understood the value of that claim. Created doubt. It made him seem cooperative. It made him seem innocent. Now that claim, like everything else he said, is revealed as part of the deception. January 12, 2026. Tony Swaney makes his first court appearance. The courtroom is packed. Bethany's family occupies several rows. Her mother Brenda Barnes, her sister Jenna Laywell, other relatives who've waited 4 years for this moment. Local media cameras are positioned in designated areas. This is the first public proceeding in a case that has gripped Alexander County. The judge reads the charge. 1 count of murder in the death of Bethany Lee Brown. Swaney stands expressionless as the words are spoken. He's represented by a court-appointed attorney who stands beside him. He doesn't speak. He doesn't react. He just listens as the legal process begins. The judge addresses bond. The defense hasn't formally requested it. They know it won't be granted. But the issue is discussed on the record. Swaney is charged with murder. The evidence suggests he killed Bethany and concealed her body for nearly 4 years. He's considered both a flight risk and a danger to the community. The judge confirms bond is denied. Tony Swaney will remain in Alexander County Detention Center pending trial. No release on recognizance. No bail amount. He stays in custody until this case is resolved one way or another. No trial date is set yet. That will come later as both sides prepare their cases. But the wheels of justice have begun turning. Swaney is led out of the courtroom in handcuffs. Bethany's family watches him leave. For years they've waited for this moment. For years of not knowing. For years of hoping for answers while fearing what those answers might be. Now they have certainty. Now they see the man accused of killing Bethany facing consequences. It's not enough. It will never be enough. A conviction won't bring Bethany back. A prison sentence won't let her children have their mother again. But it's something. It's accountability. It's justice beginning its slow march forward. Bethany's 3 children have grown up without their mother. The daughter she shared with Swaney is now 10 years old. She spent nearly half her life without her mother. Her birthday, April 8th, will forever be marked by the knowledge that on her 6th birthday party, something happened that led to her mother's death. Bethany's son, who fought leukemia, is older now. He beat cancer. He survived. And his mother never knew. She never got to celebrate that miracle with him. She never got to see him healthy and cancer-free. Because she was already dead, murdered and hidden in woods while he fought for his life. The psychological toll on these children is incalculable. Not only did they lose their mother, they lost her under circumstances that raise questions they shouldn't have to grapple with. Was she murdered by someone they knew? Someone who lived in their house? Someone they called family? Child psychologists note that children who lose parents to violence, especially violence committed by another parent or caregiver, face unique trauma. The betrayal cuts deeper. The grief is complicated by anger, confusion, fear. These are wounds that don't heal cleanly. Bethany's family faces its own psychological reckoning. Brenda Barnes spent nearly 4 years not knowing if her daughter was alive. The worst part of having a missing loved one is the uncertainty. You can't grieve properly because there's still hope. You can't move forward because they might come back. You exist in limbo. Now Barnes knows. The uncertainty is gone. But the knowledge that her daughter was murdered, that she died violently, that she was hidden in woods for years, that knowledge brings its own agony. She'll spend the rest of her life imagining those final moments, wondering what Bethany felt, what she thought, whether she was scared. I'd ask him why, Barnes said. That question will haunt her. Why did Tony Swaney kill her daughter? What happened that day after the birthday party? What argument could possibly justify taking Bethany's life? The community struggles with its own questions. How does someone commit murder and then live normally for 4 years? How does someone hide a body and continue existing as if nothing happened? How does someone look at their child, the child they had with the victim, and maintain the lie day after day? Forensic psychologists say this behavior indicates severe personality disorders, possibly sociopathy or psychopathy, conditions characterized by lack of empathy, absence of genuine guilt, and ability to manipulate others without emotional consequences. Most people who commit crimes feel guilt. It eats at them. They confess. They break down. They show signs of the psychological burden. But individuals with certain personality disorders don't experience that burden. They can compartmentalize. They can commit terrible acts and continue functioning as if nothing happened. This explains Tony Swaney's behavior, the concerned boyfriend act, the polygraph claims, the deflection toward Bethany's family, the years of maintaining his story without cracking. If he doesn't feel genuine guilt, he doesn't show guilt. If he doesn't feel fear in the normal way, he doesn't act afraid. He just performs the role of innocent man while knowing exactly what he did. The arrest brings Bethany's case back into public consciousness, but it also reminds everyone of other women missing under similar circumstances. Women whose partners claim they just left. Women whose belongings remain behind while they vanish. Women whose bodies might be hidden somewhere, waiting to be found. According to FBI statistics, approximately 600,000 people go missing in the United States every year. While most are found quickly, thousands remain missing long-term. Many of those cases involve women who disappeared from their homes, whose partners are the last to see them alive, whose cases go cold because without a body, murder is hard to prove. Bethany's case demonstrates why persistence matters, why cold cases stay open, why investigators never truly give up. Because sometimes, years later, hunters stumble upon skeletal remains, and science can identify those remains, and justice can finally move forward. The prosecution team begins assembling their case immediately. Assistant district attorneys work with Sheriff Pinnell and SBI investigators to organize 4 years of evidence, interviews, and documentation into a coherent narrative that will convince 12 jurors beyond reasonable doubt. They have significant advantages. A body positively identified through dental records and DNA. Confirmed cause of death from the medical examiner. Gunshot wound. Confirmed manner of death. Homicide. The damning location where remains were found. Woods accessible from the defendant's property. But they also face serious challenges. Bethany's body was exposed to elements for nearly 3 years. All soft tissue decomposed. Any DNA evidence beyond the skeletal remains was destroyed by weather, animals, and time. They don't have the murder weapon. No witnesses saw the actual shooting. No confession. No forensic evidence like gunshot residue or blood spatter because those traces disappeared years ago. Their case is entirely circumstantial. But circumstantial evidence can be devastating when the circumstances overwhelmingly point to one conclusion. The prosecution's strategy focuses on the irrefutable timeline. April 8, 2022. Bethany celebrates her daughter's 6th birthday with Swaney at 81 Caldwell Drive. That evening, she calls her mother distraught. She and Swaney had argued, not their first argument. April 9th to 10th. Bethany vanishes. Her car remains. Her purse remains. Her clothes remain. Only her cell phone is missing. Swaney claims she left voluntarily. December 18, 2025. Skeletal remains found in woods near Swaney's house are identified as Bethany. Medical examiner determines she was shot to death. Connect the dots. Last person to see victim alive. Argument the night before disappearance. Victim's belongings suggest she didn't leave voluntarily. Body found on his property. That's not coincidence. That's murder. Prosecutors review every statement Swaney made to investigators in 2022. Every interview with deputies. Every conversation. Every claim. Looking for lies, inconsistencies, statements that prove knowledge of guilt. Swaney claimed Bethany left April 8th or 9th. He said he thought she needed space, but the evidence contradicts this. Her car in the driveway, her purse in the house, her clothes in the closet, her makeup on the bathroom counter. Women don't leave for days without these essentials. Not voluntarily. The prosecution will argue this proves Swaney knew Bethany wasn't coming back. She didn't pack because she didn't leave. She was killed. Swaney left her belongings deliberately to support his story that she'd walked out after an argument. The missing cell phone is particularly damning. Everything else remained, but not the phone. Why? Because phones contain evidence. Call logs showing who she talked to last. Text messages showing relationship dynamics. Photos that might reveal abuse or threats. Location data that could track movements. The fact that the phone is the only thing missing suggests premeditation. Suggests consciousness of guilt. Suggests destroying evidence. Prosecutors examined Swaney's behavior after Bethany disappeared. He didn't call her mother expressing concern. He didn't help organize searches. He didn't distribute missing person flyers. He didn't make social media posts pleading for her return. He didn't act like someone whose girlfriend had mysteriously vanished. Instead, he lived normally. He went to work. He came home. He raised his daughter. He maintained the property. When reporters asked him about the case in April 2024, 2 years after Bethany vanished, he declined to comment except to say he hoped she would be found. When the Taylorsville Times contacted him, he made stunning claims. He'd taken a polygraph. Other family members should take polygraphs. They know where Bethany is. These statements reveal his strategy: deflect suspicion, point toward others, maintain innocence. Then there's the most damning behavior. When investigators searched his property in April 2022 with cadaver dogs, Swaney watched. He watched dogs work through woods where Bethany's body was hidden. He watched investigators search, and he said nothing. He didn't volunteer information. He didn't guide them to the right location. He just let them search and fail to find her. That silence is deafening. If Swaney truly didn't know where Bethany was, if he truly believed she'd left voluntarily, he had no reason to remain silent during searches. But if he knew exactly where her body was, silence was his only option. The defense team faces enormous challenges. They entered a not guilty plea at the first appearance. Now they must either prove Swaney didn't kill Bethany or create reasonable doubt about the prosecution's case. The location is their biggest problem. If Swaney didn't kill Bethany, how did her body end up in woods near his house? Why would someone else choose that specific spot? Who else would have access to those woods? The only alternative explanation is that someone else killed Bethany and deliberately hid her body near Swaney's property to frame him. But who? Bethany had no known enemies. Friends and family describe her as generous, kind, someone who would give you the shirt off her back. There's no evidence of anyone else having motive to kill her. The defense will likely argue the case is entirely circumstantial. No murder weapon, no witnesses to the shooting, no physical evidence beyond proximity, no confession. The prosecution has theories and suspicions, but not proof beyond reasonable doubt. But prosecutors don't need direct evidence. Juries convict on circumstantial evidence regularly when circumstances overwhelmingly point to one conclusion. And these circumstances point directly at Tony Swaney. Both sides engage in formal discovery. Evidence is exchanged. Witness lists are compiled. The prosecution's list likely includes the duck hunters who found the remains, sheriff's deputies who investigated the 2022 disappearance, the medical examiner who identified Bethany and determined cause of death, Brenda Barnes, who can testify about the phone call on April 8th and Bethany's distress, Jenna Laywell, who can establish Bethany wouldn't abandon her children, friends who can describe Bethany as devoted mother, Wanda Mason, who can testify about Swaney's behavior and polygraph claims. The defense will call character witnesses, people who knew Swaney and will testify he seemed normal, wasn't violent, couldn't commit murder. But character testimony carries limited weight against timeline and circumstantial evidence. Details emerge that strengthen the prosecution's case. The relationship between Bethany and Swaney had tensions. They'd argued before April 8th. Bethany had left home on at least one previous occasion, though she'd returned. This establishes a pattern, arguments leading to temporary separation. But there's a critical difference. Previous times, Bethany took her belongings. If you're still watching, you're clearly interested in real cases told in full. Like, share, subscribe now, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what comes next. Previous times, she told people where she was going. Previous times, she came back. This time was different. This time she left everything. This time she didn't tell anyone. This time she didn't come back. Because this time she didn't leave. She died. The prosecution's strongest evidence isn't physical. It's behavioral. Mothers don't abandon children, especially not mothers whose sons had battled leukemia. Bethany was there through every treatment. She sacrificed constantly for her children. Friends describe her as someone for whom family was everything. The idea that she would walk away on her daughter's birthday, without packing, without explanation, without telling her mother or sister, without taking her car, it defies everything known about Bethany Brown. That behavior doesn't match the person everyone describes. The medical examiner's finding of gunshot wound confirms it. This wasn't a woman who left and met with misfortune elsewhere. This was murder. Someone shot her. Someone hid her body. Someone had access to those woods. Someone had motive. Someone was the last person to see her alive. Months will pass before trial. Both sides need extensive time to prepare. The prosecution must organize years of evidence, prepare dozens of witnesses, build their narrative step by step. The defense must find weaknesses, challenge assumptions, create doubt wherever possible. The case will likely go to trial sometime in 2026, possibly late spring, summer, or fall. These cases take time. There are pretrial motions to file, witness depositions to take, evidence to analyze, jury consultants to hire, trial strategies to develop. For Bethany's family, the waiting continues. They waited 4 years to learn what happened to her. Now they wait for trial, for testimony, for verdict, for whatever justice the legal system can provide. While the legal process unfolds, the questions multiply. What exactly happened at 81 Caldwell Drive on April 8th or 9th, 2022? Only Tony Swaney knows, and he's not talking. He's invoked his right to remain silent. He's not explaining. He's not confessing. He's forcing prosecutors to piece together the truth from evidence and testimony. Prosecutors will build their theory based on known facts and logical inferences. Domestic violence cases often escalate over specific triggers. Arguments about money, jealousy, control, threats to leave. In relationships where one partner is controlling or abusive, the threat of permanent separation can trigger lethal violence. Maybe Bethany wanted to end the relationship. Maybe she threatened to take their daughter and cut off contact. Maybe she said something during their argument on April 8th that Swaney couldn't accept. Maybe the argument that started on her daughter's birthday continued into the next day and spiraled into violence. Or maybe it was sudden. An argument that escalated beyond words. A gun that came out in rage. A trigger pulled in a moment of fury. The difference matters legally. First-degree murder requires proof of premeditation, that Swaney planned to kill Bethany before doing it. Second-degree murder requires proof of intent but not advanced planning. Did Swaney have a gun readily available, suggesting he'd thought about using it? Or did the gun come out during the argument spontaneously? These details will determine what charges prosecutors pursue and what they must prove at trial. The medical examiner's finding tells us Bethany was shot, but not the circumstances. Was she shot during a face-to-face argument? Was she shot while trying to leave? Was she shot from behind while walking away? Was she ambushed? Did she see it coming? These questions torture her family. Horrible what she must have went through, Brenda Barnes said. Those words capture every parent's nightmare. Imagining your child's final moments. Wondering if they knew death was coming. If they felt pain. If they called out for help. If they were scared. The location where Bethany's remains were found raises critical questions. The woods near Swaney's house weren't easily accessible to outsiders. You couldn't just drive up and dump a body there. You'd need familiarity with the property. You'd need access from the house or immediate area. You'd need to know the woods well enough to find a concealment spot. This strongly suggests whoever killed Bethany either lived at 81 Caldwell Drive or had intimate knowledge of the property and surrounding area. Swaney lived there. He'd lived there with Bethany. He knew every inch of that land. He knew where the woods were. He knew how to access them without being seen by neighbors. The prosecution will argue the location proves Swaney's guilt. Only someone with regular access to his property could have hidden Bethany where she was found. Only someone who lived there could have done it without attracting attention. And only someone who lived there would risk hiding a body so close to home, because removing it from the property entirely would require transport, creating more opportunities to be seen and more forensic evidence in vehicles. Another critical question: when exactly did Bethany die? Her mother reported her missing on April 10th, 2022 at 9:50 a.m. But when was Bethany actually killed? Brenda Barnes spoke to Bethany on the evening of April 8th, the night of the birthday party. Bethany was distraught after arguing with Swaney. That's the last confirmed contact. Some sources say Bethany was last seen April 8th. Others say she was reported missing April 10th after not being reachable on April 9th. The medical examiner cannot determine exact time of death from skeletal remains. They can estimate within a range based on decomposition progression, environmental factors, and insect activity evidence. But pinpointing the specific hour or even day is impossible. What prosecutors know: Bethany was alive on April 8th. She was dead by April 10th when her mother couldn't reach her. That's a 48-hour window maximum. More likely, she died within hours after that phone call on April 8th or early morning April 9th. The prosecution will likely argue Bethany died on April 8th, shortly after the argument. Swaney's claim that she left was a lie from the beginning. She never left. She died that night or early the next morning. He then spent the next day or two concealing her body and crafting his story before her mother reported her missing. The 2022 search failure haunts everyone involved. Professional law enforcement with cadaver dogs searched those exact woods in April 2022. They walked through the area where Bethany's remains would later be found. How did they miss her? The science provides the answer. Cadaver dogs detect decomposition gases, primarily cadaverine and putrescine, that human bodies release as they decay. But these compounds don't reach detectable concentrations immediately. In the first few days after death, especially in cool weather, a body hasn't decomposed enough to create a strong scent plume. If Bethany died on April 8th and searches occurred within a week, her body was too fresh for cadaver dogs to detect from several feet away. The dogs would need to walk within a few feet, possibly within inches, to detect the weak scent signature. In dense woods with thick brush, limited visibility, and natural obstacles, searchers can easily pass within yards of a concealed body without finding it if the dogs don't alert. The handlers trust the dogs. If dogs don't alert, handlers assume nothing is there. This isn't anyone's fault. The 2022 search team did everything correctly. They brought appropriate resources. They searched thoroughly. They followed proper protocols. But nature and timing worked against them. By the time Bethany's decomposition progressed enough to create strong detectable odor, the intensive search had ended. The case had gone cold. Nobody was walking through those woods anymore with cadaver dogs. Swaney likely understood this timing issue, whether through research, intuition, or luck. By hiding Bethany's body immediately after killing her, before decomposition advanced significantly, he gave himself the best chance of remains going undiscovered during the initial search window. Did Swaney watch the April 2022 search? The answer is almost certainly yes. When law enforcement conducts extensive searches of your property, you know it's happening. You see the vehicles. You hear the dogs. You watch from windows. You observe the grid patterns searchers use. So Swaney likely watched cadaver dogs work through woods where Bethany's body lay. He likely saw investigators comb the area systematically. He likely felt the tension of discovery being possible at any moment. And he likely felt relief when they left without finding her. That psychological pressure would break most people. The guilt of murder combined with fear of discovery would be unbearable. Most killers confess under that kind of stress. They can't maintain the lie while watching police search. They crack. They break down. They admit what they did. But Swaney didn't crack. He maintained his story. He stayed calm. He kept lying. He survived the most dangerous period, the immediate aftermath and intensive investigation, without confessing or showing obvious guilt. This level of self-control is chilling. It suggests someone capable of extreme compartmentalization. Someone who can commit murder and then function normally. Someone who can watch police search for the victim while knowing exactly where the body is hidden. Forensic psychologists describe this as a characteristic of certain personality disorders, specifically antisocial personality disorder and psychopathy. These conditions involve reduced empathy, lack of genuine guilt, superficial charm, manipulative behavior, and ability to lie convincingly without the physiological stress responses most people experience. If Swaney has these traits, it explains his behavior. The calm demeanor during police questioning, the public statements declaring innocence, the claims about passing polygraphs, the deflection toward Bethany's family, the years of living normally at the house where he killed her. All of it makes sense if he doesn't experience guilt and fear the way most people do. The missing cell phone continues to intrigue investigators. Everything else remained at the house: car, purse, makeup, clothes. But the phone disappeared. Why specifically the phone? Because phones tell stories. They contain text message histories showing relationship dynamics. They have call logs revealing who someone talked to in their final hours. They store photos that might document abuse or threats. They track locations through GPS and cell tower pings. If Swaney killed Bethany, her phone likely contained evidence connecting him to the crime. Maybe texts showing threats. Maybe calls from her telling someone about the argument. Maybe photos documenting previous violence. Whatever was on that phone, Swaney needed it destroyed. The fact that it's the only item missing isn't coincidental. It's evidence of consciousness of guilt. It shows Swaney understood what the phone represented and took steps to eliminate that evidence. Investigators likely tried tracking the phone through carrier records. They could see when it last pinged cell towers, when it was turned off or destroyed, whether any final calls or texts were sent. But without the physical device, they couldn't access its contents unless Bethany had backed up data to cloud services. That's one angle prosecutors might pursue at trial: expert testimony about the missing phone and what its absence suggests about Swaney's knowledge and intent. Another angle, Swaney's own statements. His claim in April 2024 that other family members should be given polygraphs because they know Bethany's whereabouts might seem like deflection, but it could also reveal his psychological state. Accused killers often project. They accuse others of exactly what they themselves did. By suggesting Bethany's family knows where she is, he might have been unconsciously revealing that he knew where she was. These questions will drive the trial. Prosecutors will present theory. Defense will challenge that theory. Witnesses will testify. Experts will explain decomposition science and skeletal trauma analysis. Jurors will hear it all and decide what they believe happened in those woods 4 years ago. January 27, 2026. 20 days since Tony Swaney's arrest. The legal process moves forward, but trial is still months away. Discovery continues. Motions will be filed. Evidence will be analyzed and reanalyzed. Witness depositions will be taken. Both sides will prepare strategies, anticipate arguments, build their cases piece by piece. For Bethany's family, the waiting continues, but the nature of waiting has changed. For years, they waited without knowing. Waited hoping Bethany was alive somewhere, even though hope faded with each passing month. Waited for answers that seemed like they might never come. Now they wait with certainty. Bethany is dead. She was murdered. The man accused sits in jail awaiting trial. This waiting has an endpoint: trial, verdict, sentencing. This waiting has purpose. This waiting leads toward justice, or whatever version of justice the legal system can provide. But justice in a courtroom is limited, profoundly limited. A guilty verdict doesn't bring Bethany back. A prison sentence doesn't let her 3 children have their mother again. A conviction doesn't erase years of not knowing, of hoping, of grieving without closure. It doesn't undo the violence of her death or the cruelty of her body lying undiscovered while her family searched everywhere else. What justice can provide is accountability, says Bethany Brown mattered. Her life had value. The person who took her away deserves consequences. It validates her family's belief that something terrible happened. It confirms their instincts were right when everyone told them maybe Bethany really did just leave. Brenda Barnes thinks about her daughter constantly. About the phone call on April 8, 2022, the last time she heard Bethany's voice. About how Bethany sounded distraught after arguing with Swaney. About how she tried to comfort her daughter, not knowing those were their final words. She thinks about Bethany as a child, as a teenager, as a young woman becoming a mother herself. She thinks about Bethany working at big lots and in restaurants, always working hard to provide for her children. She thinks about Bethany's favorite color being purple, about her love of riding around mountains, about her generous spirit. And she thinks about the violence of Bethany's death, about those final moments only Tony Swaney knows. I'd ask him why, Barnes told reporters. I'd ask him what was going on that day, but Swaney isn't answering. He's exercised his constitutional right to remain silent. He's not explaining what happened. He's not confessing. He's not providing the closure desperate families crave. This is the reality of many murder cases. The full truth dies with the victim. The killer won't talk. Families are left with theories, with legal conclusions, with circumstantial evidence, but never with complete knowledge of those final moments. Never with the why. Bethany's 3 children carry burdens children shouldn't bear. The daughter she shared with Swaney, now 10 years old, spent nearly half her life without her mother. Her birthday, April 8th, will forever be marked by knowledge that on her 6th birthday party, something happened that led to her mother's murder. How does a child process that? How does she reconcile memories of celebrating her birthday with knowledge that hours later, an argument occurred that ended in her mother's death? How does she understand that one of her parents is accused of killing the other? Bethany's son, who battled leukemia, faces his own psychological reckoning. He fought for his life while his mother was missing. He beat cancer, a miracle families pray for, and his mother never knew. She never got to celebrate with him, never got to see him healthy and cancer-free. The Lord has since healed him, and Bethany has probably not heard about it, Jenna Laywell said. That sentence captures devastating irony. Bethany spent years being there for her son through illness. But when he achieved the outcome she'd prayed for, she was gone. The psychological impact on children who lose parents to violence, especially violence potentially committed by another parent or caregiver, is profound. They don't just grieve. They grapple with betrayal, with loss of safety, with questions about trust and family and love. Child psychologists note these children often struggle with guilt. Could I have stopped it? Fear. Could this happen again? Anger. How could he do this? And confusion. Am I supposed to love him or hate him? They may have nightmares. They may develop anxiety disorders or depression. They may struggle with relationships because their foundational understanding of family was shattered. Bethany's family has access to victim services through the district attorney's office, counseling, support groups, victim advocates who help navigate the legal system. These resources help, but they can't eliminate the pain. They can't restore what was taken. The community of Taylorsville and Alexander County watches this case with mixture of horror, fascination, and sad recognition. It's the kind of case that reminds everyone that violence can hide behind normal facades, that someone can commit murder and then live next door, wave hello, maintain their yard, raise their child, go to work daily, all while concealing terrible knowledge. Wanda Mason speaks for many when she describes the cognitive dissonance of living next to Swaney for years. I sort of believed him, she said about his claims of innocence. She saw him daily. He seemed normal. He told her he'd passed a polygraph. He expressed hope Bethany would be found. How could that person be a murderer? But that's precisely how killers with certain personality disorders operate. They don't act guilty because they don't feel guilt the way most people do. They perform normalcy convincingly because they're not burdened by the emotional weight most people carry after committing violence. They can compartmentalize. They can lie without the physiological stress responses that usually accompany deception. This is what makes cases like this so unsettling. The killer isn't obviously monstrous, doesn't have warning signs visible to everyone, appears normal, functional, even pleasant. This forces recognition that danger can look like anyone, that violence can emerge from seemingly ordinary people. The case will go to trial in 2026, possibly spring, summer, or fall depending on court schedules and preparation time needed. When it does, Bethany's story will be told publicly in full detail. Witnesses will testify. Evidence will be presented. Jurors will see photos, hear testimony about gunshot wounds, learn about decomposition science. The trial will be public. Media will cover it extensively. Details that have been sealed in court documents will become public record. Swaney's defense strategy will be revealed. Prosecution tactics will be visible. The community will watch justice unfold in real time. If Swaney is convicted, sentencing will follow. Bethany's family will have opportunity to deliver victim impact statements. They'll speak directly to the judge about what Bethany's murder cost them, about the years of not knowing, about children growing up without their mother, about birthdays and holidays marked by absence, about a son's cancer victory she never witnessed. The judge will weigh everything: the crime itself, the concealment that lasted years, the impact on victims, aggravating factors, mitigating factors if any exist. Then a sentence will be imposed. Years, decades, perhaps life. If Swaney is acquitted, different questions emerge. How does Bethany's family find peace? How do they accept that the legal system couldn't provide accountability? How do they explain to her children that the man accused of killing their mother walks free? Acquittal doesn't mean innocent. It means not proven guilty beyond reasonable doubt. It leaves the case technically unsolved, a murder without legal accountability. For now, all anyone can do is wait. Wait for trial. Wait for testimony. Wait for verdict. Bethany Lee Brown deserved better than what happened to her. She deserved to see her son beat cancer. She deserved to watch her daughter grow from 6 years old to teenager to adult. She deserved to celebrate graduations, birthdays, milestones. She deserved to become a grandmother someday. She deserved to keep riding around mountains she loved, swimming with family, giving people help like she was known for doing. She deserved to live. Instead, her life was taken. Her body was hidden. Her family was left in agonizing uncertainty. Her children grew up without her. Her son fought cancer without her there to celebrate his recovery. Her mother lost a daughter to violence. That's the horror at the heart of this case. Not just that Bethany was murdered, though that's horrific enough, but that her killer possibly walked free for years, lived in the house where she died, raised the daughter they had together, maintained normalcy while her remains lay in nearby woods, told neighbors he'd passed polygraphs, told reporters he hoped she'd be found, suggested her own family knew where she was. If Tony Swaney did what prosecutors will argue he did, killed Bethany, hid her body, lived normally for years, then he demonstrated breathtaking capacity for deception and compartmentalization. He looked investigators in the eye and lied. He watched cadaver dogs search and stayed silent. He spoke to media maintaining innocence. He lived next to Wanda Mason telling her he'd cooperated fully with police, all while knowing exactly where Bethany was, all while knowing he'd killed her, all while knowing her family was desperately searching, all while knowing 3 children were growing up without their mother because of what he did. The trial will seek to determine if this is what happened, if prosecutors can prove their case beyond reasonable doubt, if 12 jurors will unanimously conclude Tony Swaney murdered Bethany Lee Brown. The answer is coming. The legal process moves slowly but steadily toward resolution, toward the day when a verdict is read, when Swaney either goes to prison for decades or walks free, when Bethany's family either gets accountability or watches justice fail. Until then, Bethany's story continues to unfold. Her case reminds us why cold cases matter, why investigators never truly give up, because sometimes, years later, hunters stumble upon remains. Science identifies them, and murder cases thought to be unsolvable suddenly have paths forward toward justice. If this case affected you, if you believe Bethany Brown and her family deserve justice, hit that subscribe button and share this video. Let her story be heard. Let her name be remembered. Let people know that mothers who love riding in mountains and swimming with family deserve justice when violence takes them away. Bethany Lee Brown, 38 years old, mother of 3, someone who battled through her son's leukemia diagnosis, someone whose favorite color was purple, someone who worked hard at big lots and in restaurants to provide for her children, someone who vanished the day after her youngest daughter's 6th birthday party, someone who was murdered and hidden in woods for years, someone whose children are growing up without her, someone whose story demands to be told. Rest in peace, Bethany. Your family hasn't forgotten. Your children carry your memory. And now, finally, the world knows what happened.